What's up, y'all? My name is Rell, and you are now tuned into Rell Talk, the podcast. As always, you can find me on Google. Just Google Rell, YouTube, Rell, or Rell Talk, and on Instagram at raleighrell. Today's podcast, I want to talk about growing up black. If you look around on the internet, you'll see a lot of Vine compilations and Instagram videos of comedians talking about growing up black. But most of those videos will make anybody who's not black think that growing up black was a horrible thing, because a lot of the videos they're funny, but they only highlight the negatives of growing up black. And some of those things just aren't true. I want to highlight the positives of growing up black, because as I sit here and I think about what it was like growing up in a black neighborhood where most of us were poor. You know, some of us were extremely poor and some of us were, lower middle class. But for the most part, most of us didn't have much. And as I sit back as an older man now, I think about, what it was like growing up black, and some of those things my children who are not growing up in the black community just don't experience, and they won't experience. And I wish they would experience. And I hope that I'm able to put them back in that position where they can experience that without all the negativity that comes with living in the black community. And so some of the things that I remember growing up was, we knew all our neighbors. You know what I mean? Now, I didn't grow up in the era where my neighbor was allowed to whoop me. I'm a little later than that, but I remember growing up and, my mom, we would be outside playing, and my mom would leave the house, go grocery shopping or whatever. And she would just tell the neighbor, hey, look, when my kids come home, or if they come home, let them know I'm going to the store and just look out after them while I'm gone. And the neighbor would be like, say no more, no problem, I got you. I remember growing up in my neighborhood, and, we would literally spend the night at our friend's house, all weekend. And your mom knew you were there and didn't have to worry about, anything bad happening to you. You know what I mean? I remember, literally, on the weekend when we didn't have to come in the house, when the streetlights came on, everybody would be congregated, in a circle or in a certain area of the neighborhood where people would be cooking on the grill. Kids would be playing, tag, older kids playing basketball, porch playing cards. I mean, these things you just don't get outside of the black community. And I know this for a fact. You just don't. And I can remember, like I said before, I can remember growing up, and this is a big one for me because I had this issue, and this is when I realized that things were different. I remember growing up, as a kid, and if somebody was working on their vehicle in the parking lot or in the driveway, if somebody was walking by and saw the hood up, automatically they were like, hey, what's going on, my brother? You need a hand? You need some help? I mean, what's the problem? No question. If you saw a hood up in a black neighborhood, there was like 3 or 4 heads under that hood, because everybody was trying to figure out what was wrong. And I remember a few years back, I had a car and I had some issues with it. And I don't really trust, mechanic shop. So I'm like, I can fix it myself. And it took me a while to fix my car, but I can remember working on it every single day. And my white neighbors would go to work, you know what I mean? Or would be going to the store. They would leave their house and, going about their day. And nobody ever said, you need a hand? Can I help you? Nobody. Not a single person. This went on for about 3 months, till I finally got the car back to how I wanted it. But a long story short, they never offered a helping hand to help me fix my car. And that's when I realized that, man, now granted, I didn't really need the help. I was taking my time, it wasn't my only vehicle. So I wasn't really stressing about, getting it fixed right then and there. But they didn't know that. And nobody never said, yo, can I give you a hand? Ever. And I thought that was weird. But then I realized, other races aren't built the way we're built. As black people, we just have a natural, gift of wanting to help everybody. We want to see everybody do well. We don't want to leave anybody out in the cold. I mean, how many times do you remember, your grandma helping somebody who had no good in them, but grandma said, come on in and get something to eat? You know what I mean? How many times have you seen, your mom or your dad help a neighbor who was probably talking about y'all on the low, but that's your neighbor, so you help them regardless. You know what I mean? Other races don't have that same, I don't know what it's called, but other races just don't have that. They just don't. And you really realize it when you're living amongst other races and you see how much people interact with each other. I mean, I really don't know my neighbors. We speak, but I don't know my neighbors. I remember growing up knowing my neighbors. I mean, we have a sense of community in our neighborhoods like no other. If we can, refocus a lot of the negativity and turn them into positivity, our neighborhoods will be like gold mines. There's nothing, and I'll tell people this every day, there is nothing like growing up in the Black community. There's nothing, I don't care if you're talking about a community that's like more negative than good. Even those neighborhoods have a sense of community. They have a sense of pride. They have a sense of family. You just don't get that outside of the Black community. You just don't. I don't know no other race where they really come together and treat each other like family when you have nothing to look forward to. I mean, looking out for each other like family. You don't get that outside the Black community. And if you're not Black and you're listening to this, let me know if I'm wrong. But I know in the communities that I've lived amongst, almost 100% whites. I've lived amongst, half whites, half Arabs. You know what I mean? I've lived amongst Indians. I've lived amongst, haven't really lived amongst Hispanics, except for when I was in the Black community and, we had a few Mexicans that would move in here and there. But for the most part, I've lived around the majority of who live in the United States. And I'm telling you, I don't get that sense of community from other races as I do from my own people. And even now, when I drive back and I visit relatives who are still in predominantly Black communities, you can't help but notice, man, y'all really do like each other over here. Like, y'all are really like family. I mean, who remembers, knocking on your neighbor's door for some ketchup or knocking on your neighbor's door for some sugar? At the time, it was probably embarrassing. And now we'll laugh back like, dang, man, I remember mama sent me to go get some ketchup or whatever. But that's something you can only do in a community where you trust your neighbors. Because for the most part, I ain't eating nothing out of my neighbor's refrigerator right now. Because I don't know them. I don't know them enough to trust them. I don't know them enough to know how the refrigerator looks, whether it's clean, dirty. I don't know them. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't dare send my son to go get some ketchup from my neighbor. But as kids, my mom didn't hesitate to say, or my neighbor didn't hesitate to say, hey, go get some sugar from next door. And that's something you only get from people that you feel connected to. And I'm telling you, like in the next few months, I'll be, buying a house, you know what I mean? And I really want to move back to the Black neighborhood, the Black community, should I say. See, I got to think about neighborhoods and communities. I think neighborhoods are created by the city. Communities are created by the people. So I want to raise my children in an environment where they're around people that look like them, that treat them well, that treat them like family, and, gives them that sense of security. But I want to avoid, again, all the negativity, because I'd be a fool to sit here and pretend like it's all good in the Black community. But I am sitting there telling you that it's not all bad. We have a lot of fixing we need to do, but me as a Black male who grew up all my entire childhood in the Black community, and there is nothing like growing up in the Black community. Not a single thing. And if I could put my children back in that environment right now, today, without dealing with the enhanced police presence or, some of the gunshots and, the drug dealing and the gang activity, then I would do it in a heartbeat. But I have to do it in a strategic way where I make sure I put them in a position where they don't fall victim to that circumstance. You know what I mean? But again, that community, the love, the security that you feel as an adolescent growing up in a Black neighborhood, I don't think our Black children have that same sense of security when they're amongst people who don't look like them. And that's just my opinion. And I'm curious to see, what y'all think. I'm curious to know what, the rest of, not just the Black community, the rest of society, what do y'all think about when you live amongst your own people versus living amongst predominantly somebody who doesn't look like you? I'm curious. That's all I got for today, y'all. I'm going to try to do quick podcasts here and there. All of them aren't going to be, 30 and 40 minutes long. But I want to just drop my thoughts on y'all from time to time. Hope y'all enjoy them. And again, like I said before, you can find me on YouTube, just YouTube Rell Talk or Raleigh Rell. I also do a video show called Rell Talk. And on Instagram at raleighrell. I look forward to talking to y'all. Glad y'all are listening. Hope y'all are enjoying. If y'all got content y'all want me to speak on, or if I'm wrong about something, correct me. Let me know. I'm here. Let's dialogue. Let's be the change you want to see. Thank y'all for tuning in, y'all. Rell Talk, the podcast. I'm out.